The silence in the locker room was deafening. Just hours after a stunning victory, the young Filipina sensation sat alone, her mind racing. She had just beaten Iga Swiatek on center court at Wimbledon, a victory that would be plastered across every sports headline from Manila to Madrid. The cameras had captured the joy. The crowd had seen the fist pump. But what they didn't see was what happened next. The quiet conversation. The words that would cut deeper than any defeat. Her coach, the man who had been with her since she was 13, the man who had seen her at her lowest and her highest, looked her in the eyes and said the words that no athlete ever wants to hear. You need to focus. You're letting everything else get in the way. This wasn't a compliment. This wasn't a pep talk. This was a call-out, a challenge, a declaration that the hype, the fame, the pressure of carrying an entire nation were threatening to distract her from what mattered most. The tennis, the game that had brought her here. And in that moment, the tennis world realized something. The brightest stars are not always the ones who shine the brightest on the court. Sometimes, the real drama happens in the shadows of the locker room, where the people who know you best are willing to tell you the truth you don't want to hear. This is the story of Joan Bosch, the coach who dared to call out his own star. This is the story of Alex Eala, the champion who had to be reminded why she was fighting. The year 2026 was supposed to be a year of consolidation, a year where Alex Eala, now 21 years old, would build on the promise she had shown in the previous seasons. She had already achieved what no Filipino tennis player had ever done. She had climbed into the top 20 of the WTA rankings. She had become the biggest tennis story in the Philippines, a nation of over 100 million people who had suddenly discovered a passion for a sport they had barely noticed before. She was no longer just a player. She was a symbol. She was a hero. She was a girl carrying the weight of a country on her shoulders. The pressure was immense. Every press conference was packed. Every match was moved to center court. The Filipino flags were everywhere, draped across the stands, waving in the breeze, a constant reminder that she was not playing for herself. She was playing for her nation. Her coach, Joan Bosch, the 51-year-old Spanish mentor who had been guiding her career since she was a teenager at the Rafa Nadal Academy, watched this phenomenon unfold with a mixture of pride and concern. He had always known she was special. He had told anyone who would listen that she would be in the top 100, then the top 50, then the top 20. But as Eala's star rose, so did the distractions. The media requests, the sponsorship obligations, the constant demands on her time and energy. Bosch had always preached a simple philosophy. The goal is to be better than the year before. The ranking was not the goal. The prize money was not the goal. The fame was not the goal. The only goal was to keep improving, to keep climbing, to keep finding new ways to be better. But as the hype around Eala grew, Bosch began to notice a shift. The focus was no longer just on the tennis. It was on everything else. And that was when he knew he had to speak up. The warning signs had been there for months. At the Australian Open earlier in the year, Eala had been steamrolled by Iga Swiatek in the fourth round, a demoralizing 6-1, 6-0 defeat that highlighted the gulf in class between a top 20 player and a Grand Slam champion. The match had been a wake-up call, but the lesson hadn't stuck. At Wimbledon, the pattern repeated itself. Eala had just achieved her best result at a Grand Slam by far, reaching the fourth round after a stunning victory over the defending champion, Iga Swiatek. The win had sent shockwaves through the tennis world. But then came the loss to Jasmine Paolini. It was a match Eala could have won, a match she should have won. The only difference was the focus. In the press conference after the match, when asked about the positive moments, Eala seemed to be in good spirits. She joked about Roger Federer watching her match and not asking for a photo with her. It was a light-hearted moment, but for Bosch, it was a symptom of a larger problem. She was laughing. She was happy, but she had just lost a match she should have won. She had just let an opportunity slip through her fingers, and she was treating it like a joke. Bosch's frustration was palpable. He had seen this before. He had coached players who got distracted by the bright lights, the media attention, the pressure of expectations. Eala's situation was even more extreme. She wasn't just playing for herself. She was playing for a nation that had never had a tennis star before, a nation that was learning the sport as she was playing it. The pressure was immense, but the distraction was even greater. Bosch knew he had to do something. He had to bring Eala back to reality. He had to remind her why she was here. It wasn't for the fame. It wasn't for the money. It wasn't even for the Philippines. It was for the tennis, for the love of the game, for the pursuit of excellence. And he had to tell her that she was losing sight of that goal. He had to tell her the truth, even if it hurt. The moment came after a practice session at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca. Bosch was the coach, the mentor, the trusted confidant who had been with Eala since she was 13. He had seen her at her best and her worst. He had watched her grow from a shy teenager into a fierce competitor. He knew her game inside and out, and he knew that she was not herself. In an interview later, Bosch would recall the conversation. One day, after a match, she was very disappointed because she had lost. I told her, "Alex, stop. Tomorrow we will train again. There will be another tournament, and everything will be fine." But Eala was inconsolable. She was crying, telling him, "If I play like that, I will never be strong." This was the moment Bosch knew he had to be honest with her. "For me, Alex is already strong," he told her. "But the question of how far she can go, no one knows." He wasn't telling her she was weak. He was telling her she was distracted. He was telling her that she was playing the game, but she wasn't focused on the game. She was focused on everything else. He didn't mince words. He told her that she needed to remember why she was there. She needed to focus on the process, not the outcome. She needed to be better than she was the year before. That was the goal. Not the ranking. Not the fame. Not the hype. Just improvement. If she plays well, she can go a bit more, and then you see, he said. When she was 50, I felt she was far from the 20s. Now she is 20, you see the top 10 a lot closer. But it's not a goal. The goal is always to be better than the year before. And if you do that, most probably your ranking will be almost the same or better. The message was clear. Eala needed to stop looking at the rankings. She needed to stop worrying about the hype. She needed to stop feeling the weight of a nation. She needed to focus on the tennis. Nothing else. It was the kind of tough love that separates good coaches from great ones. It was the kind of honesty that can break a player or make them stronger. The tennis world reacted with shock. How could a coach say that about his own player? How could he call her out like that? But for those who knew Bosch, it wasn't a criticism. It was a challenge. It was a call to action. It was a reminder that the journey to greatness is never easy. And the people who love you the most are often the ones who are willing to tell you the hardest truths. Eala's response was immediate and decisive. She went back to work. She focused on the process. She stopped worrying about the hype. She stopped carrying the weight of a nation. She started playing tennis again. The results spoke for themselves. At the Mubadala DC Open in Washington, Eala captured her first WTA Tour singles title. She beat some of the best players in the world. She proved that she could compete with the best. Her coach, Joan Bosch, was the first to praise her. "Yes, I'm super happy. She's doing well. It's just the start of the hard season, the US season. So, it's a good start," he said after her victory over Leylah Fernandez in Washington. He knew that the hard work was paying off. He knew that his tough love had worked. The coach-player relationship is one of the most delicate dynamics in all of sports. The coach is supposed to push, to challenge, to demand greatness. The player is supposed to listen, to trust, to respond. Bosch had done his job. He had called out his player. He had challenged her to be better. And she had responded. She had proven that the toughest love is sometimes the most effective. Eala herself has always been vocal about her trust in Bosch. "It's super important that Joan Bosch, who is here with me, is my trusted person. He helps me feel like I'm not alone on the court. I trust him a lot," she said after the Washington final. The trust was mutual. The respect was deep. The relationship was stronger than ever. The story of Joan Bosch calling out Alex Eala is not a story of conflict. It is a story of growth. It is a story of a coach who loved his player enough to tell her the truth. It is a story of a player who was strong enough to hear it. It is a story of a relationship that was tested and came out stronger on the other side. Eala is now sitting at world number 20, a career-high ranking that has her within striking distance of the top 10. She has beaten some of the best players in the world. She has captured her first WTA Tour title. She has become a symbol of hope for a nation. And she has done it all with her coach by her side. Bosch, for his part, has never changed his philosophy. Ranking for sure is important when you have a career of 10 years, but we will know if the top 20 ranking is good or not. Not now, he said. Maybe in 5 years or in 10 years. He knows that the journey is long, and the goal is not a number. The goal is to keep improving, to keep growing, to keep fighting. The ranking will follow. The tennis world has learned a valuable lesson. The brightest stars are not always the ones who shine the brightest on the court. Sometimes, the real drama happens in the shadows, where the people who know you best are willing to tell you the truth you don't want to hear. Joan Bosch is not a villain. He is a hero. He is a coach who dared to challenge his star. And Alex Eala is a champion who responded to that challenge.